One of the more interesting skills that Ye has is his ability to inspire those that he works with. Kanye truly is a curator of sorts, especially nowadays, with his last record Donda seeing him work with all sorts of young talent and pushing them to deliver their best performances. But this is not a new phenomenon for Kanye. From Fabio Foreign on Off the Grid to Rick Ross on Devil in a New Dress, so many artists have come forth over the years and told stories about Kanye having them rewrite their verses and pushing them to be their very best in the studio. But with being so involved with those he collaborates with, Ye has developed some insane chemistry over the years with certain artists, leading to both personal friendships and outstanding music. Kanye has 2 collaborative albums in his discography with Kids See Ghost and Watch the Throne, but various artists have become staples of Kanye's album cycles, appearing on many and in some cases all of Ye's projects. So today, we're going to look at Kanye West's greatest collaborators, featuring the likes of Jay-Z, Pusha T, Kid Cudi, and more, as we dive deep into their personal and professional relationships with Ye. Starting out this video, we're going to be talking about somebody who started as a Kanye protege, but as they developed into their own artist and found their own sound and identity, they have come to be one of Kanye's best collaborators. I'm talking about Travis Scott. Ye and Travis first linked in 2011 as Ye was crafting his Good Music collab album, Cruel Summer. At the time, Travis was really on the grind. He was trying to make it as an artist, and there was talks between him and T.I.'s label to maybe get a deal signed, but he was really struggling. He was sleeping on friends' couches and selling beats on the side. And Kanye heard his shit and had him fly out to basically work on Cruel Summer with him, and this is where Travis would meet one of his other mentors, Kid Cudi, for the first time. Ye would use one of Travis's beats for the track Sin City and also give Travis a feature on that track. And Kanye would really see something special about Travis when they first linked up here, as when Travis was crafting his first mixtape Al Pharaoh, Ye would be the executive producer along with Mike Dean. As Travis continued to try and find his own sound with those early mixtapes, he would continue to work with Kanye in the studio as Ye began work on his 2013 album, Yeezus. Yeezus was an album that was very ahead of its time, and I think that can be contributed to Kanye's process of having these fresh minds around him like Travis in the studio. When all was said and done with the project, Travis would have producing credits on 3 tracks, those being I Am a God, New Slaves, and Guilt Trip. But again, the working relationship didn't just stop there. Travis would put out his debut studio album Rodeo, in which Kanye would be featured on the very underrated track, in my opinion anyway, Piss on Your Grave. Actually, this was a Kanye song that Kanye traded Travis in exchange for the song FML. The trade was done around the time that Ye was working on his unreleased project, So Help Me God. And it's in this era that him and Travis would work on numerous bangers that would never be released officially, such as Tom Cruise and of course, the infamous Can You Be. Following that in 2016, Kanye is in a very ambitious mood. Just put out The Life of Pablo, then he wanted to do the video game inspired record TurboGrafx 16, and another idea he had in mind and he put in motion was a follow-up to 2011's Cruel Summer. That was of course the Good Music collab album, and he wanted to do another record just like that with the new members of the Good Music roster and call the project Cruel Winter. Kanye would pick Travis Scott to be the executive producer for this project, and a lead single would drop for the album called Champions, featuring of course Travis and Kanye, but also Big Sean, Gucci Mane, Quavo, Yo Gotti, 2 Chainz, and Designer.
And also, hold on. He can't leave without telling us about this Good Music release.
Oh,
also.
yeah. Cruel Winter. I'm executive producing that album. It's coming very soon. I want to say like the top of the next year. I'm putting the press on everybody. I'm saying February.
How many songs are done right now for Cool Winter?
I would say we have a lot of songs done. How many songs we have picked? I'll only say like a handful. We have a lot of songs done, but we just got to sit down and like, lock in all the way. But
everybody's involved.
Everybody's involved.
Designers on there too.
Kanye West. Every good music artist involved.
Okay.
Every good music artist involved. Every good music artist involved.
There you go.
It's like amazing, and we got like our illest friends, and it's gonna be like one of the illest projects. And one thing I can say about this project is gonna be very youthful.
This project would of course never see the light of day, as Kanye would go on the St. Pablo tour and soon be hospitalized due to exhaustion and diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So after his mental health struggles, Ye kind of lays low for a little bit till late 2017 and 2018, of course, where he gets back on the horse and starts creating some new music once again, really driven by his experiences with his mental health struggles. 2018 is a really weird year for Kanye too. Like, you got a lot of good, and then a lot of what the fuck, oh my god, that almost happened, and then there's Yandhi. Travis, on the other hand, would have a terrific 2018, releasing his biggest project to date so far in Astroworld. Ye would not be featured on the project when it finally dropped, but he would have his ties to the album in a few different ways. First off, he would be featured on a lead single for Astroworld with the song Watch, along with Lil Uzi Vert. Really an underrated banger. Like, it's a song you hear and you're like, what the fuck is this? This doesn't work. And then like 2 days later, you're like, I gotta hear that back again. But you gotta go back further than Astroworld dropping, further than the release of Watch, and even further than Kanye's 2018 releases to see Ye's deeper ties to Astroworld, specifically the song Skeletons. Prior to settling on the concept of Ye, Kanye would craft a very controversial album following his hospitalization in 2016, and the record was set to be called Love Everyone. I've done a whole video on that project, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but originally, Travis's song Skeletons was in Kanye's hands and worked on for Love Everyone. Kanye's version goes further than Travis's. Travis just has his lines, and then The Weeknd comes in, and then that awesome outro, the instrumental by Tame Impala. Everything with Kanye's is the same, he just says Travis's lines on the intro, but then Kanye, after the song originally ends, the version it does on Astroworld anyway, he has like a 3-minute verse that's really awesome. Song we get back to Travis, obviously for Astroworld, and he would not use Kanye's contributions. Kanye does have a writing credit, as Travis would use his lines on the intro anyway. But, very interesting. Speaking of Astroworld, when you're talking about that project, you can't go without mentioning the song Sicko Mode. On that song, you got the Drake feature. And personally, it's fucking fire, okay? It's my favorite Drake verse. But of course, he's taking shots at Kanye. With both of them having houses right by each other in the same neighborhood in Calabasas, Drake's talking about how he crept down the block, he made a right into Kanye's house, he cut the lights, slept with Kim, and then he paid the price for it. I kind of look at everything from an outside perspective like, hey, it's just music, you know what I mean? But Kanye, of course, would understandably take this very personally and rant about it on various occasions on social media, including a legendary video where he is interrupted by a train.
Hold on, this train going by.
But despite Kanye voicing his frustrations online, there would be no real beef between him and Travis. As 2018 went on, Kanye would, of course, start making the album Yandhi, which would eventually morph into Jesus is King in 2019. So you have Kanye take this religious route with Jesus is King, and then as 2020 comes, he again is riding that religious kind of concept with his music, and he starts working on an album, God's Country, when the whole pandemic shit goes down. Recording and work on the project would take place at Kanye's ranch in Wyoming, and the era would really be kicked off as Kanye announced the album on Twitter, along with announcing and dropping a lead single, Wash Us in the Blood, featuring Travis Scott. Travis first recorded the track in early 2020 at the ranch, but there would be more songs that they worked on at this point in time that we would eventually hear, as God's Country morphed into Donda. Kanye's path to Donda releasing in 2021 is really complicated because you have the God's Country stuff, and then that turned into Donda in 2020. It was a very colorful album reflecting on his mother and everything. And then after 2020, the album never came out, and the fall comes, he becomes very mysterious. The color and the energy behind Donda in the summer completely morphed into this darker project by the time that it officially was heard by the public and dropped in 2021. In a year and a half after those original God's Country sessions, the world would hear another collab worked on by Travis and Ye at that time called Praise God. Donda would be premiered 3 times for the public before officially dropping in the form of these listening events. Praise God would be a song played at each event with various progression, but each time Travis was featured, and at the 3rd listening event in Chicago, Travis would join Ye on stage during the premiere. Following the release of Donda in 2021 in the summer, it really seemed like Travis was getting ready to start the rollout of his highly anticipated album to follow up Astroworld, the album Utopia. And right before Astroworld Fest 2021, where it seemed like everything was really coming to a head, Travis would drop 2 tracks in a little bundle, kind of branding it as Dystopia before the Utopia, with the tracks Escape Plan and Mafia dropping. But Astroworld Fest happens, the branding is all Utopia, it really seems like Travis is ready to launch this shit and start the rollout, and then the tragedy happens. The big crowd crush at the festival, some people lost their lives, and it was just an absolute clusterfuck for everybody involved. Understandably, this halted the album's progression and the rollout, and the media would take a very weird route of blaming Travis entirely for the casualties. Like I said, people would really blame Travis for this incident because his name was around the event, he was the guy on stage performing, but various videos of police officers seeing people in need of aid and just ignoring them. But let's blame the guy on stage who is seeing a massive crowd of like 50,000 plus people. Travis, understandably, all under the scrutiny of the media and the hate, he would go quiet. But Kanye was already working on some new music. In late 2021 and early 2022, he was hard at work as he would announce to the public in February that his sequel to Donda, Donda 2, would be dropping that month. A listening event would be had for the project on February 22nd, and as many people predicted, heavily unfinished album. Ye would premiere some songs and even perform some from his catalog at the show, but one of the songs premiered would stand out, in my opinion anyway, from most of the rest played, and that would be the song Pablo, featuring Future, and for the first time since the tragedy, Travis Scott. Travis would perform the hook on the track, and although Donda 2 and of course the song Pablo would never officially release, it's a pretty big moment for Kanye to stick his neck out and support his brother like that. And of course, you also have a few months prior to that in December, just 2 months or a month following the Astroworld incident, where Kanye performed at the Larry Hoover concert with Drake and made sure that the first words he said on the mic when Praise God hit, and Kanye said very clearly into the mic, La Flame. But as I said, Donda 2 would not release, and Kanye would somehow go on to have an even more controversial 2022 than it seemed like it was going to be earlier in the year when he was antagonizing Pete Davidson. We don't fuck with Pete, but like, things seemed bad when the Kardashians were coming at him on social media and everything. That wasn't shit compared to what he would do in the fall, as Kanye would take his message of love everyone a bit too far and say some very anti-Semitic shit that was kind of insane even for him to say. Like I said, the message would be lost in translation, and Kanye would receive hella criticism and scrutiny that, in my opinion, was fair. But as Ye went quiet after the comments and 2023 came, Travis would officially start the rollout for the highly anticipated Utopia. The record would release in summer of 2023, and while Kanye would not be featured directly, his presence throughout the project would be felt heavily. 3 tracks on the album would be produced by Kanye, all of which were rooted in the God's Country era. Those tracks being Thank God, God's Country, and Telekinesis, formerly known as Future Sounds. You can really just hear the Yeezus inspiration on this project specifically. You got Modern Jam with the I Am a God beat, and then of course Circus Maximus really tapping into that black skinhead energy. But the big moment in terms of Kanye's relation to the album really comes on the track Schizo, where Travis, similar to what Kanye did for him after the Astroworld Festival incident, would shout out Kanye, really giving him his flowers and saying how he's still loyal to him. This is especially proven when Travis would bring out Kanye for the first time since his comments back in December of 2022 at his Circus Maximus show in Rome. This is really a special moment, Travis sticking his neck out for the guy who gave him his first big break back in 2011. Utopia saw Travis at the height of his game once again. Very well received record across the board. But then you bring out Kanye, who is so controversial right now. A lot of people still upset about what he said and what he did back a year prior. But Travis showed that respect, bringing him out for the first time since that whole incident. Ye's first public appearance, just what a moment. Through the many people we're going to talk about on this list, a lot of them have had beef with Kanye and had periods where they are not on good terms. And Travis is one of the very few people on this list who honestly has always been good with Kanye. He's never switched up on him, he's always shown respect, even though he has reached his own level of superstardom from once being that producer who Ye took Sin City's beat from. And honestly, I can't really put it any better than Kanye said on Piss on Your Grave.
Me and the flame, is you not entertained?
Next collaborator I'm going to talk about, I think some people may be like, really? Kind of out of left field. But when you really think about all of the music he has made with Kanye over the years, they almost never miss. I'm talking about Ty Dolla $ign. I think it's fair to say that not only is Ty's collaborations with Kanye super underrated, but I think in general, Ty Dolla $ign is one of the most underrated artists of our generation. He really has an outstanding voice, and I know like the meme is that he's always a feature, like no one really listens to his shit on his own. He even has an album called featuring Ty Dolla $ign, I think it's one of his most recent, but man does he have a fucking amazing voice. And while Ty is ultimately a big feature artist, I would argue that no one utilizes his talents better than Kanye. Shockingly, Ty actually met Kanye for the first time during Ye's 2005 Touch the Sky tour. At the time, Ty was rolling with Sarah, a group that was tight with Ye at the time and eventually would be signed to Good Music. Ty went to London with Sarah, where he first met Kanye, and the two would play each other some tracks and just bullshit. But the first time that the duo would actually work on some music together would be in 2016, when Kanye was working on The Life of Pablo. Now, one thing you gotta understand about Kanye's process to eventually making The Life of Pablo is that it was incredibly complicated. Following Yeezus, he had a lot of ideas for an album and created a lot of music, some of which would make it on Pablo, some of which would get lost in the translation and the creative process. But he went from a Yeezus sequel to So Help Me God, to Swish, to finally Pablo. The point is that the album process for The Life of Pablo started way prior to 2016, and Ty and Kanye's working relationship started prior to that year as well. Around 2014 to 2015, the two would be in the studio together when Kanye was creating the album at the time called So Help Me God, and Ty would lay down some features and some references for tracks like Only One, I Feel Like That, and more. But when Pablo officially dropped, tracks like I Feel Like That, they didn't make the cut. The ones that did, featuring Ty, would be the track Real Friends and Fade. And pretty much from that moment on, with Pablo, Ty would become a staple of Kanye's albums, and they would link again during the 2018 Wyoming sessions. On Kanye's solo album that year, Ye, Ty would be featured on 3 out of the 7 tracks, those being Wouldn't Leave, Violent Crimes, and All Mine. He would also be featured on Kanye and Kid Cudi's collab album Kids See Ghosts that was released just a week after, having vocals on the song Free. But similar to the Pablo situation with So Help Me God, Ty worked with Ye a lot more that year in terms of collabs that just never got released to the public. Prior to Ye's release, when Kanye was working on Love Everyone, Ty would be featured on an unreleased version of the track Ecstasy. The song would eventually be released, but Ty's contributions to the track would be left off. Ty not only was involved with the unreleased Love Everyone prior to Ye's release, but he also would be involved with Kanye in the studio that same year in 2018, as following Ye, Kanye began to work on likely the most infamous unreleased album of all time, Yandhi. Ty would lay down vocals for a shit ton of Yandhi tracks, those being the ever so popular New Body, along with versions of The Garden, Hurricane, City in the Sky, and The Storm. You know the story from here, folks. Yandhi never releases, and Kanye undergoes a spiritual awakening of sorts, a religious transformation, and begins work on his gospel album, Jesus is King, which releases in 2019. Now, a very few amount of Yandhi tracks were transitioned into becoming these secular tracks, right? Shakaris became Salah. And in that same way, the song that Ty was featured on Yandhi, The Storm, would become Everything We Need and be released on Jesus is King, with Ty's feature still attached. Following Jesus is King, as discussed during the Travis Scott section, Kanye would begin to work on a brand new project idea called God's Country at his ranch in Wyoming. And of course, Ty Dolla $ign would be involved. It is in this era that the birth of my personal favorite collab between Ty and Kanye would be born, as the track Welcome to My Life would first be started during this God's Country era. Ty does the hook on the track, and it's just fucking awesome. Like, definitely encourage you guys to look it up. Now, after the initial studio sessions, Kanye would announce on Twitter that his next album was God's Country, it was coming soon, and he was releasing the single Wash Us in the Blood. Now, capitalizing off this announcement, Ty would release Ego Death around the same time, which was a Yandhi era track that featured Kanye. The track really doesn't get enough love. It's a fucking bop. It was a big moment at the time. COVID shit was just going down in like the Kanye community. At the time, Yandhi leaks, like, we're like, holy shit, we're getting Ego Death, bro. I think Kanye's performance is great too, along with Ty's. Just ultimately, yeah, a forgotten track, which is unfortunate. But as we've discussed already, God's Country would of course become Donda in the summer of 2020, which Ty would still very much be involved in the process of. It's at Kanye's ranch in the summer of 2020 that Ty would lay down some vocals on tracks like By Your Side and track 6, which was a song that was later given to him to be released on his album that I actually mentioned previously when we started this section, featuring Ty Dolla $ign. Kanye has a feature on it as well. Donda 2020, the colorful vibe and everything that accompanied it, would obviously never see an official release. Kanye would get all wrapped up in political shit and eventually go quiet, go into hiding, and return the next year in 2021, still working on this Donda project, but rather than the energetic, upbeat, and colorful energy, it was a lot darker of a concept. Some things may have changed. Kanye's creative direction for the project, his mindset, but you know what's always the fucking constant? Ty Dolla $ign being involved. Ty would link up with Kanye during the whole Spirits Over the Horizon shit, which actually is just a name to describe Kanye's process working on Donda in 2021 prior to the first listening party in Las Vegas. Ty would work on tracks like Daylight and Believe What I Say, but when Donda would actually officially release in August of 2021, he would only be featured on one track, that being Junya Part 2. Ty would work with Kanye during Donda 2 in February of 2022, but most recently, Ty Dolla $ign has gotten a lot of attention from the Kanye community, as he has been by Kanye's side during the entire creative process of this current album that Kanye is working on as of this filming. This album is going to be a big release for Kanye. After all the controversial shit that went down in late 2022, this, as I described it in my last video, it's really a comeback album, and Ty has been along for the ride pretty much the whole time. He was with Kanye in Japan, traveled with him in August to Italy, so I'm very interested to see whatever these two are cooking up, because you know there's going to be some sort of collab with this upcoming album. And if their past collaborations are any indication, you could bet for damn sure that this upcoming Kanye album, the tracks with the Ty Dolla $ign features are going to be fire. The way I see it, Ty is really like the Des Dickerson to Kanye's Prince, and he's truly helped contribute to some of the greatest tracks in Ye's discography. Our next collaborator is somebody who, unlike Travis and Ty, wasn't under Kanye in terms of experience and age when their relationship started. Next collaborator is Pusha T. From 1992 to 2010, Pusha T was a part of a rap duo called Clips with his brother No Malice. Kanye was a huge fan of Clips, and he had a birthday party in 2006 at the Louis Vuitton store in New York, and at that party, he requested that Clips perform that night the entirety of their Hell Hath No Fury album. That's the first time that Kanye and Pusha T officially met each other. But a year prior, they were actually on the same track together, with Kanye and Clips both being featured on the track Crazy, parentheses, Fuck That Money, off a McBoogie mixtape. But it's at Ye's party that they obviously first had that personal interaction. From there, they would collaborate a little bit. Clips would make an unofficial remix to Flashing Lights off Graduation. And then in 2009, Kanye would be featured on the Clips track Kinda Like a Big Deal, which is actually really fucking underrated. But in 2010, Clips would officially break up, and Pusha T's career was really flipped on its head. His brother was getting out of making music, he wanted to get his life straight, but Push obviously still wanted to pursue a career as an artist. But after being a part of a duo for 15 plus years with his brother, what exactly was Pusha gonna do as a solo artist? While working on his debut solo mixtape, Fear of God, Push would get a call from Rick Ross, where Ross essentially told Push that he was working with Kanye in Hawaii, and Kanye wanted Pusha T to come out and record some tracks. Kanye was, of course, crafting his magnum opus, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, a comeback album set to launch him back into the loving arms, the good graces of the public after his infamous interruption of Taylor Swift's acceptance speech for Best Video at the 2009 VMA Awards. Kanye would have so many people fly out to Hawaii and contribute to this thing in an attempt to truly make the perfect album. And when Push arrived, he would end up staying for over a month, laying down some verses and truly connecting with Kanye. Prior to releasing My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, Kanye would obviously put out some singles and also start his little program of Good Fridays, where he would release a track every single Friday, kind of tiptoeing his way back into the public eye and also just hyping people up for what this record was going to be. Push would be featured on a shit ton of these tracks, like Christian Dior Denim Flow, Take One for the Team, Looking for Trouble, and the title track, Good Fridays. But with all due respect to his efforts on the Good Friday tracks, they would pale in comparison for what the world would witness as Kanye returned to the VMAs in 2010, 1 year after the controversial moment, to debut Runaway. And with him on stage was, of course, Pusha T. Push would rap his verse on the track, and it's a very interesting verse at that. Kanye had Push rewrite that verse, allegedly, a shit ton of times, truly wanting Pusha T to tap into a mindset of like the biggest scumbag you can even possibly think of. Seems dramatic, but it very much complements the theme of this track and would end up giving us that iconic feature from Pusha on this song that we all know and love today.
Runaway song, like all of Kanye's records that I've been around for, all sparked from conversations. And it was just, conversations about relationships at the time, we were having. And he was like, yo, your perspective is sort of dope. Like, your perspective would fit really good on this song, but I just really want you to take the stance of the asshole. So, people don't know I wrote that verse like 4 times because he kept chanting like, I need more douchebag, I need more douchebag, I need more douchebag.
It was clear from the first time that fans heard Runaway that Push and Kanye truly had some insane chemistry. And from there, these guys literally would go on Hot 97 together before the release of Dark Fantasy and spit some freestyles together. Ye would soon sign Pusha T to Good Music, and soon after release My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy on November 22nd, 2010. And with the record officially released, Pusha T would not only have that spotlight moment on Runaway, but also have a verse on the track So Appalled. As Push gained momentum following his features on Kanye's tracks, he would drop Fear of God and a sequel in Fear of God 2, helping establish himself as a solo artist. Ye would actually be featured on both projects, with the tracks Touch It and then Amen along with Yeezy, which is another just underrated fucking banger. But the bangers would continue coming, as in 2012, Kanye would officially release the previously mentioned Good Music collab album Cruel Summer, which Push would of course be involved in. The project will come after Ye's massive collaboration with Jay-Z with Watch the Throne, and at the height of his commercial success, Ye would craft some of the craziest posse cuts ever heard. Tracks like Click, Mercy, and Don't Like would run the summer, and Push would shine with his verses on New Godflow, The Morning, Higher, the intro of the Don't Like remix, and of course, the iconic Mercy. Following 2012, Push and Ye would really establish a pattern where they both worked on their respective albums at the same time. Ye would release Yeezus in June of 2013, but along with handling his own project at the time, Ye would primarily tackle production for Push's debut solo album, My Name Is My Name. Ye would have production credits on 7 out of the 12 tracks off My Name Is My Name, but Push's first studio album would be a really big moment for him. It's on this album that we would see Pusha T really dig into that lethal and dangerous sound in both his delivery and bars, with bangers like King Push, Numbers on the Boards, and Nostalgia featuring Kendrick Lamar. And as Kanye embarked on the Yeezus tour later that year, he would take Pusha along with him to open. Following 2013, Kanye would begin his long journey to creating the follow-up to Yeezus. As mentioned before, he would eventually put out The Life of Pablo in 2016, but the creative process saw Ye go through many different concepts like Yeezus 2 and So Help Me God. Push, per usual, would be in the creative zone with Kanye in the studio during this time, and he would have references on all sorts of unreleased tracks such as Midas Touch. But while Ye wouldn't finish his album until 2016, he would help Pusha T with the creation of his second studio album, King Push, Darkest Before the Dawn. On the record, Kanye would feature on the track MPA, and also, aside from that album, he would give Push a song that he was working on during the Yeezus 2 era that was called After You. Push would take it and release it as a single separate from this album and rename it to Coming Home. While Push would not have an appearance on The Life of Pablo, he would reconnect with Kanye to make some magic during the Wyoming sessions in 2018. Push was around for pretty much everything in 2018 up until Yandhi. Then he kind of dropped the fuck out with all the Trump shit. But before Ye, before Kids See Ghosts, before any of that, obviously, Kanye was working on the previously mentioned Love Everyone. And it is in that era that the track Lift Yourself would spawn. To explain this really quick, Drake was out at the ranch when Kanye was working on new shit in late 2017, early 2018, and he heard this beat for Lift Yourself. He really fucking liked it. Kanye said, okay, I'll give it to you, but then to fuck with Drake, he would put out the track before he could put a verse down and everything, and basically spit some nonsensical bars just to kind of put it in Drake's face and show him that, hey, I'm still above you. This is in the midst of Drake feuding with Kanye's brother Pusha T. And essentially the plan was, as Pusha T explained it in an interview, there's a finished version of Lift Yourself, and he has a feature on it. And for the album, we're going to put it out. Push, along with having a feature on a finished version of Lift Yourself, also had a verse on an early version of Yikes. But more importantly, 2018, these Wyoming sessions is where Kanye and Push really got to work on Pusha T's third studio album. This album would be Daytona. And to myself and many other music fans, it is one of the best hip-hop records of the 2010s. The story goes that the record was pretty much done. There was a rough draft of it anyway, a rough cut, but it was very close to being finished. And in Calabasas, Push, Kanye, and other people in the camp all listened to the album, right? All listened to it together, and they're like, sounds fucking great, let's go. Then the next day, Push is eating with Kanye, and Kanye's like, yeah, we're not going to put it out, I could do better. And Pusha T's like, what? He's like, no, I could just do better. So we're going to go to Utah, and I'm going to do my best, because I know I can make better beats than this, I can find better samples, we're going to do this shit. So Push and Kanye go to Utah to really get in the zone, and they rent out this hotel room. It's expensive as shit, but they're splitting the costs. But then they're there for a week, then they're there for 10 days, and Pusha T is like, what's going on? Because allegedly, for those first 10 days, all they were doing was playing music, and Kanye was looking for samples of obscure ass shit. So Push is like, yo, this is getting expensive. Like, what are we doing here if we're not actually making progress on this album? We're just looking at samples. But then on the 10th day is when the track The Games We Play was born. And from there, they really started cooking. By the end of Ye's revision, a 14-track album was turned into a tight 7-song release. Not a single skip or a dull moment on the project. Daytona would kickstart this path of releases, followed by Kanye's solo album Ye, and then Ye's collab with Kid Cudi called Kids See Ghosts. Every album released in this bunch were just like Daytona at just 7 tracks long. And Push would also be featured on the opening track of the Kids See Ghosts record on the song Feel the Love. Like I said, Push kind of left after this run, as, you know, he's doing his own shit to promote Daytona, as well as going on tour and also dealing with the Drake beef. But also Kanye was getting super political at this point, and Push didn't exactly agree with Kanye, but they respectfully disagreed as Kanye started doing his own thing with the Yandhi project, which of course would never be officially released. As Yandhi turned into Jesus is King the following year, Push would be featured on the Gospel album, on the track Use This Gospel, along with his brother, No Malice, now going by the name of just Malice. Like I said, Malice had also found religion, found God, and become a very God-fearing man. So this was a huge moment because, one, he's on this gospel record spitting his truth, and also, it's fucking Clips, the reunion. 2020 comes, and Push is heavily involved with both God's Country and the OG Donda. While he would do some stuff and put down some reference tracks for God's Country, he would do a lot more work when it came to Donda in the summer of 2020, at least that we know of anyway by the filming of this video. As of what we know, Push did reference tracks for the tracks Life of the Party, Alien, Off the Grid, Believe What I Say, Praise God, and more. But as Donda morphed into the darker version we know it as today, in 2021, Push would still be involved. In what fans call the Green Tile Sessions, in spring of 2021, Push would be working with Kanye as Ye was crafting Donda, where he would first hear the track Dreamin' of the Past. It is a song that he immediately fell in love with. He loved the beat, Kanye produced it, and he begged Kanye for this song. And luckily for him, Kanye gave it to him. That would appear on Push's album a year later, but we'll get to that in a second, as Push also would record a very impassionate and powerful verse, spitting bars back and forth with Kanye on the song South Carolina, aka Donda. This track was the second one heard at the first public listening party in Atlanta for Donda, and it's a really emotional track. Starts out with Dr. Donda West, Kanye's mom, speaking, and then it goes into Push and Kanye really going back and forth talking about Kanye's wild 2020, including his presidential rally that was a mess, where he talked about his daughter North and almost aborting her, which is just awful. The thing is that, yeah, this is something you wouldn't want to talk about. It was brought to the public. It was said. People heard it. News stories ran with it. And addressing it here was not only very vulnerable and introspective of Kanye, but also kind of like necessary to patch this shit up. Like, you fucked up, and this was kind of like shedding light on it and, I don't know, not making it better, but like, you know, addressing it. For whatever reason, that second half of the song where Pusha T was featured along with Kanye's bars was cut off by the time that Donda officially released. But this was a decision that Pusha T had no ill will towards, saying he respects Kanye's vision. But as I said, with Kanye and Pusha T's album cycles, they often work side by side, both working on their newer projects. And that would be the same case, because as Donda was being worked on in 2021, Kanye was not only working on that record, but also Push's upcoming release, It's Almost Dry. Ye would produce a lot of beats for Push at this point in time, and he would put those tracks on this record, released in early 2022. This project was really cool because half of the tracks were produced by Kanye, and then the other half of the tracks were produced by Pharrell Williams. The tracks that Ye produced would be Dreamin' of the Past, Just So You Remember, Diet Coke, Rock and Roll, Hear Me Clearly, and I Pray For You. Along with making beats for Push for this record, Ye would also be featured in the Diet Coke music video when that track dropped as a single. Additionally, while the Donda 2 listening party was a fucking disaster, you did have this really cool moment at kind of the top of the show where Kanye brought out Pusha T to perform Diet Coke, which was just pretty special, as these two surprisingly haven't had a lot of moments where they can embrace publicly and show that respect to a grand audience. Following the Donda 2 shit, Kanye would go on to say some wild things in late 2022, which would understandably lead Pusha T to denounce it when asked about Kanye's recent activity in an interview. Pusha didn't just like say this out of nowhere. He was legitimately asked in an interview, and he said, you know, something that wasn't too damning, but still saying his piece without just like fully biting his tongue and being a yes man, which I respect personally. But this would lead some Kanye dick riders to be like, damn, Pusha T's changed. He's turning his back. It's like, dude, shut the fuck up. This is why I've always respected Pusha T, because while he is in Kanye's camp, and he's been very close to him since they first really started that bond in 2010, he's not just one of these people who's gonna nod and agree with everything Kanye says. They've disagreed respectfully in the past when Kanye started wearing the MAGA hat in 2018. Like, people can respectfully disagree and still, you know, put their differences aside and be close and be friends. That's what's insane to me about calling Pusha T a traitor. It's like in an industry where people turn on you all the time for monetary gain or clout, like, this is one of the only real motherfuckers that Kanye has ever associated with who has never turned his back on him. Even if they disagree sometimes about politics, these guys have had insane chemistry and just clicked together since 2010, and honestly, they're one of my favorite musical pairings of all time. As Push said back on New God Flow, with Pusha T in his corner, Kanye's got his own personal coke dealer. And in my opinion, just nothing goes harder than Pusha T over a Kanye-produced beat. Push and Kanye often call each other brothers. and, the family ties are there, but someone who is legitimately blood related to Kanye is next on our list, and that man is the world famous Tony Williams. Tony Williams is Kanye's cousin, and he is somebody who truly does not get the respect he deserves. He is behind so many iconic Kanye tracks. He's contributed so much in Ye's discography, yet this man never gets his flowers. He's been on just about every Kanye album other than Jesus is King, Ye, and Watch the Throne, providing beautiful background vocals. Tony grew up with Ye, like they're blood, he's his cousin, but he actually didn't know how big Kanye was getting when Kanye was producing for Jay-Z until he was on the street and someone was like, yo, like talking about Kanye, and he's like, that's my fucking cousin, like y'all know about him? Williams was trying to make it as an artist as well, having dropped out of college just like Kanye did. But with Kanye going to New York and everything and leaving, the separation in the distance kind of led Tony to not understand how fucking serious shit was getting for Kanye and Rockefeller. They would call often and talk about what they were working on early in their careers, but as Kanye was laser focused on finishing his debut album, The College Dropout, those calls became less frequent. After discovering the connections Kanye was making with artists like Jay-Z, Williams finally asked him, like, yo, is there any chance I can sing a line or do something with this album you're making? To which Kanye would say, well, I just signed this guy, John Legend, who's going to be handling all, my vocals like that, so I don't have a spot for you. Christmas time comes, and Tony Williams always picks up Donda and Kanye from the airport and brings them to the family function. And while they usually do this, they always played what they were working on at the time, to which Kanye played some of The College Dropout, and Spaceship comes on. And basically the story goes that Tony Williams started kind of riffing, singing over Spaceship beat, right? And he's saying, his whole part at the end there, and Kanye's like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, what was that? Do it again. And then he does it again, and then Kanye's like, that is exactly what I need on this record. That's exactly the sound I want. So Kanye, after hearing this, flies Williams out with literally 2 weeks before The College Dropout officially releases and gets him on this record, and also would put him on some other tracks. Tony Williams' vocals were exactly the sound that Ye was wanting. They fit the exact vibe, and they matched that energy he was looking for. And he would not only put him on Spaceship, as mentioned, but also on School Spirit and The Last Call. And from that moment, history was made. Ever since The College Dropout, Tony Williams has been a mainstay on Kanye's records. On Late Registration, Tony Williams is featured on Drive Slow, Crack Music, We Major, Roses, and he would produce the vocals on Bring Me Down. And you go on to Graduation. He's got vocals on Good Morning, Champion, Flashing Lights, Everything I Am, and Homecoming. 808s and Heartbreak. Williams has vocals on Say You Will, Amazing, RoboCop, Streetlights. And you go Dark Fantasy. He's got vocals on, of course, the intro track, Dark Fantasy, Gorgeous, All of the Lights, Runaway, Hell of a Life, and Lost in the World. He would also provide his vocals for Blood on the Leaves off Yeezus. And after 2013, when Kanye was like in that weird space of finding what he wanted his next album to be, when he was working on this album, So Help Me God, he had a track God Level, which Williams had an amazing performance on, but unfortunately, the track never released. Life of Pablo was put out. Tony Williams would be credited for vocals on the track Waves, and then most recently, he would have a delivery on Donda with the title track Donda, which some fans knew as South Carolina previously. It's just really ironic to me that Tony Williams' contributions to The College Dropout were so last minute, because he has been so integral. He's been such a big part of Kanye's sound. He perfectly matches Ye's production, whether it's on the chipmunk-esque sound of The College Dropout and Late Registration or the industrial-ass sounding Yeezus. Williams is able to provide vocals that complement the overall sonic atmosphere of a track. It's fitting we just talked about The College Dropout when we are talking about our next Kanye collaborator, Kanye's big brother, Jay-Z. It's crazy because Kanye and Jay-Z both, respectfully, play such a big role in each other's careers. Everyone's heard of this story by now and seen the Genius documentary, but for those who don't know, Jay-Z was an established artist at Rockefeller Records, and he heard this kid Kanye's beats, and he started using them on his albums, and suddenly, Kanye blew up as a producer. Everyone wanted a Ye-produced track. The issue was that Kanye didn't want to give out all of his beats because he wanted to use them himself. He wanted to be an artist, but not many people believed in him. As the story goes, Ye would prove the naysayers wrong and prove himself to be a competent, and talented rapper in his own right, with early tracks like Through the Wire. And as 2004 rolled around, Kanye would of course put out his debut album, The College Dropout, which would feature Jay-Z. Hove would not only have a verse on Never Let Me Down, but he would also perform the iconic intro of the final track on the album, Last Call, where he really put over Kanye and his talents. From first using his beats for hit tracks like Heart of the City, to then rapping alongside him on The College Dropout, from this moment on, Jay-Z was really seen as Kanye's big brother. He gave him his first big break and helped him establish himself as a solo artist. The two would collab again on Kanye's second album, Late Registration, on the track Diamonds from Sierra Leone. But a true integral moment in their relationship came with 2007's Graduation, where Kanye would dedicate an entire song to his relationship with Jay-Z called Big Brother. The track really details the ups and downs of their relationship and encourages people to tell others that they admire how they really feel, to give them their flowers while they're still around to smell them. And as the public got to better understand Kanye and Jay-Z's relationship, the hits just kept on coming. You had Run This Town with Rihanna on the Blueprint 3, you had Swagga Like Us with T.I., like, shit's just unstoppable. And when time came for Kanye to craft his perfect album, his magnum opus, of course Jay-Z was gonna be on, having features on the tracks Monster and So Appalled. But it is at the start of the 2010s that Ye and Hove went beyond just being features on each other's projects, and decided to create a full-on collab album together. In August of 2010, Kanye was in the midst of his Good Friday program, where he released a song every single Friday in the lead up to My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Power was released as a single previously, but as a part of the Good Friday releases, Kanye would put out a Power remix featuring Jay-Z. After the drop, Ye would put out a tweet that read, "Me and Jay about to drop a 5-song album called Watch the Throne." With this, it's safe to assume that the early tracks were already ready in the chamber. But Kanye would say in an interview with MTV in October that rather than this just being a 5-track project, him and Jay were changing their mind and they were going to make a full-on album. With this change came the removal of Monster from Watch the Throne. Originally, it was supposed to be just a Jay-Z and Kanye collab song, but it got moved to Dark Fantasy. Fans would get their first preview of this collab effort in January of 2011, as Kanye and Jay-Z would release the single Ham, but a new single wouldn't come till July, when the duo infamously premiered Otis on Hot 97 with Funkmaster Flex. Watch the Throne would officially drop on August 8th of 2011, and overall just be a celebration of fucking greatness. Just truly hits on this album. You got a legend Jay-Z and Kanye in the midst of one of his many peaks creatively. I say many, emphasis on that. And they kept coming too, because then you get into 2012 with Cruel Summer, and of course Jay-Z is on the very underrated track Click. Following the release of Cruel Summer, rumors of a Watch the Throne 2 album would start to circulate online, but we would later learn that these weren't rumors. This was a plan. Kanye's longtime producer Mike Dean, who we'll get to in a little bit here, legitimately signed up to be a part of the production and mix for Hove and Kanye, but the collaboration, the sequel, it would just never see the light of day. Things would get really weird between Kanye and Jay-Z past 2012, as Kanye would get involved with the Kardashian family. He would marry Kim, obviously, in early 2014, date her in 2013, and Jay-Z would literally not go to his wedding. Jay-Z and Beyonce claim that this was due to the fact that they were going through some personal issues and arguing really badly at the time, and that they weren't going to go to a wedding if they weren't on good terms themselves. But to me, it's like, if this dude really is your brother, like you claim him to be, Jay-Z has called Kanye his brother for a long ass time. Like, I don't care, man. You make the wedding. You go there. You know, you're there. If you and the wife don't go together, that's fine, but that's your fucking brother. It's been highly rumored, highly rumored, I'm gonna get fucking Alex Jonesy up in here, that Jay-Z never really approved of Kanye dating a Kardashian, and he warned him against it, and Kanye still did it, and he was just like, what the fuck are you doing? And that sounds crazy, right? Until you realize that they wouldn't collaborate for 7 fucking years until after Kanye and Kim got divorced. I have to clarify here that they would technically be featured on the same track, Pop Style. It's a Drake song featuring, quote, The Throne, but this was not a song that they recorded together in the studio, like going back and forth off each other. This was, recorded separately. We talked about the madness of Kanye's St. Pablo tour a lot on this channel, and even mentioned how he was hospitalized due to exhaustion earlier when talking about the Travis Scott section. But basically what happened was Kanye was dealing with a lot of shit. He was on the road, just overworked, and he would go on this crazy rant in 2016 at one of his St. Pablo shows, and he would walk off the stage and be hospitalized and then diagnosed with bipolar disorder. But that rant, he would say some shit about Jay-Z and Beyonce that didn't sit well with Jay. During the rant, Ye would say that he was hurt by Beyonce saying that she wouldn't perform at some award show if she didn't win Best Music Video over Ye and Drake, which I guess is something that seemed more important at the time. He was trying to make some basic point overall of artists getting too stuck in the idea of winning and having their ego boosted. Additionally, Ye would tell Jay-Z to call him and plead for him to, quote, not send his shooters at his head. Kanye would be hospitalized and diagnosed, and Jay-Z, however, would slightly respond to this. On his album 444, Jay would have a line on the track Kill Jay-Z where he says, "You got hurt because you did Cool by Ye. You gave him 20 million without blinking. He gave you 20 minutes on stage. Fuck was he thinking?" Some people took this as a diss. It's honestly, like Jay-Z would say, yo, like, I don't like how he mentioned my wife and talked about her, but this isn't really a diss. It's what happened. He talked about me for 20 minutes on stage. Like, that's what fucking happened, you know? While Jay would mention how he didn't like him talking about his family, like, nothing really happened with this. 4 years go by, and in 2021, we see the return of the throne. Kanye is working on his album Donda, and it's at the point where he is at Mercedes-Benz Stadium prior to the first listening party, still laying down verses and vocals. And he's with Mike Dean working on the album, and he looks up at a clock and it reads 4:44. And Ye tells Mike Dean, yo, we need to call Jay-Z. He needs to be on this album. It's a sign. That story's told by Mike Dean, and that is apparently the sole reason that Jay-Z is featured on Jail. And while ridiculous, it really seems like fate with how perfect Jay-Z aligns with the song's theme and meaning. Jail sees Kanye at a very desperate point, vocalizing his vulnerability about his family falling apart in a divorce and his relationship with his former wife Kim becoming a toxic mess. Donda is an album all about Kanye's family being really torn apart, and the one person he has who he would turn to at this point in time, Donda, being gone, so he seeks inspiration in her words. And while she's not really here to help him, who is here to have his back in this moment where he needs it most? Who's here to pick him up? His big brother. On the track, Jay-Z's essentially telling Donda, like, yo, I got your son right now. And he goes on to reference all these Kanye songs that he kind of missed during their absence of not working together. Just what a fucking moment. It's total brilliance. With this moment and them working together once again on this song, there is a increased chance of Watch the Throne 2 potentially happening. But with Kanye's words in late 2022, I just think, honestly, Jay-Z does not want to touch that shit. But regardless, like I said earlier, both of these guys are so important to each other and each other's respective careers. So many iconic tracks between these guys. And despite some personal issues and beefs throughout the years, the legacy they leave behind is untouchable as the throne. Now we're going back to those people who are the more unsung heroes of Kanye's discography, those who work on the albums but, don't get the respect they really deserve or the publicity. And this next guy is honestly somebody who, if he's not working on the record, it's not even really a Kanye album. I'm talking about Sci-Hi the Prince. Sci-Hi is essentially Ye's right-hand man for helping him find flows and write bars. He has been an essential part of Ye's camp since he first linked up with Ye in 2010. Before connecting with Kanye, Sci-Hi was grinding as an artist trying to find his way in the music industry. And in February of 2010, he would do a collab song with Yellow Wolf, which Ye would get a hold of. Ye was very impressed with Sci-Hi. He loved his verse, he loved his feature, and he would fly him out to Hawaii as he was working on My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and that is when they would do the record So Appalled. And Sci-Hi was originally just supposed to do the hook on that track. But the story goes that as Kanye left the room, the audio engineer was still there, and Sci-Hi was like, you know what, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And he told the sound engineer, like, yo, I'm gonna do my verse on this thing, play the track. Kanye heard the verse, and he loved it so much that he would put it on the official Dark Fantasy album on So Appalled's final version. And along with this story, I guess Beyonce heard it from the other room, and she literally turned to Kanye and goes, "You have to sign that guy." Like I said, verse ended up on Dark Fantasy, and Kanye would end up working with Sci-Hi for the entire rest of his career as of this filming. Sci-Hi has writing credits on almost every single album of Kanye's post-Dark Fantasy, those being Yeezus, The Life of Pablo, Ye, Jesus is King, and Donda. Songs he's helped Ye write include On Sight, Wolves, All Day, Blood on the Leaves, New Slaves, Yikes. I can go on and on. The common misconception though with Kanye is that he never writes any of his new shit, which couldn't be further from the truth. We're hearing that he's a lot more involved with this new project than he's ever been, but Kanye's always kind of been known to overshare. Like, literally, if someone is in the room and they're fucking doing nothing but drinking water, he'll be like, "I was inspired when they were around, so I'm gonna give them a credit on this track." That's not to discredit Sci-Hi. I'm just saying it's not like he's entirely ghostwriting shit for Kanye, as it's more of a collaborative process. Regardless, he has played a key role in Kanye's discography, and again, he's one of those guys that really deserves his flowers. Like I said earlier, it's truly not a Kanye project if Sci-Hi's not involved, and that was proven just recently, as about a month from this video filming, there were reports of him in Italy, where Kanye is recording his upcoming comeback album. From one great lyricist to another, we go from Sci-Hi to likely the youngest and freshest collaborator on this list that Ye has recently connected with just a few years back. The one, the only, Playboi Carti. Like I said, Kanye and Carti's relationship is relatively new, especially compared to everyone else on this list, but they seem to be pretty damn tight. They've really developed a dope-ass friendship over the years, but actually they would first connect really without Kanye even knowing who Playboi Carti was at the time. Carti originally modeled for Kanye's Yeezy Season 5 fashion event, and the two wouldn't really link up on a personal level to create some new music until December of 2020. This is when Kanye would become the executive producer of Playboi Carti's highly anticipated third album, Whole Lotta Red. Before even linking up with Kanye, Carti's album was set to have a feature from Ye himself, as he received a Kanye verse that was recorded in 2015 for a future track called In Abundance. Like I said, Carti was given this verse and he was going to put it on his track for this album called Go to the Moon. When they met up, Kanye would rewrite the verse, taking out some iconic lines, but this is back between Jesus is King and Donda, where Kanye was still kind of not wanting to swear on tracks and everything. But following this, the two would develop a pretty close bond, as Kanye would have Carti around a lot when working on his 2021 album Donda. About a week after the release of Whole Lotta Red, Kanye would be in Belgium at a hotel, and a fan would know that he was there and record outside of his window as he heard Kanye playing some new music. The song being played at that time was Off the Grid, and the video would capture Playboi Carti's feature on the track. 6 months later, Kanye is officially starting his rollout for the album Donda, and as he's chilling at Mercedes-Benz Stadium just hours before the first listening party, we would see Playboi Carti backstage with Kanye. The two would be recording the track Junia, which would later be premiered that same night. And 2 weeks later, at the second listening event, Kanye would premiere Off the Grid officially with that Playboi Carti feature. We would see the two hanging around in September of that same year, around the time Carti was lying to us about Narcissist. But the next time we'd see Carti and Kanye would be where Kanye was debuting some new music for Donda 2, in which Carti would be on the album. Prior to the event, a single would be released featuring Kanye, Fabio Foreign, Alicia Keys, and Carti, with Carti having slight contributions to the track with his ad-libs. But at the Donda 2 listening event, Kanye would premiere a brand new track featuring Playboi Carti and Future called Mr. Miyagi. The track would unfortunately never be released. I actually like this one. I know some people think Mr. Miyagi's kind of mid, but it's a chilled back, it's like a layback song. But that same night, we would see more of Playboi Carti and hear more of him technically, as the show ended with a performance of Off the Grid. And yeah, I've done the joke how many times on this channel that Playboi Carti died at this show, just screaming. But this show had terrible audio issues, and honestly, Carti's energy he brought to this last performance helped people, go away from watching this show and thinking instead of oh my god, that was the worst thing I've ever seen, it was yeah, that was shitty, but hey, Carti's fucking awesome. After the show, Carti would take to social media to post a screenshot of some messages between himself and Ye following the event, in which Kanye texted him that we need to go on tour together. Ironically, this idea would actually kind of be brought into motion, as apparently there was a plan for an introvert tour with Kanye, Playboi Carti, and Lil Uzi Vert that just never happened, of course. I know people say like, oh, I'd sell my kidney for this, I'd sell my kidney for that. That is legitimately one of the things that like I would contemplate. But like I said, Carti and Kanye have developed a very unique relationship, you know, both having respect for each other, and I think honestly both inspiring each other. As much as Carti looks up to Kanye due to his past catalog and just his status as an icon in the music world and the fashion world, Kanye definitely always is someone who looks to the younger generation for ideas and inspiration, and Carti is one of those people paving his own path and truly being unique and himself. They apparently text every day, according to Carti himself. And I mean, just looking at their catalog together, they never miss, man. Like Off the Grid, in my opinion, is a generational track. I cannot wait for the next Kanye and Carti collab. It's just a shame that two of my favorite artists have to be just the biggest liars in the music industry. But what are you gonna do? Narcissist. We go from somebody in Carti who is one of Ye's more fresh collaborators to somebody who has been along for damn near the entire ride, mixing almost every single Kanye album in Ye's discography. We got to talk about Mike Dean. Kanye's career in music would not be the same if it wasn't for Mike motherfucking Dean. And whether some people want to deny that or not, it's a fact. If you don't know, Mike Dean is the man behind the synths, the guitars, and of course the mixing on almost every single Kanye album in Ye's discography, and he's also done that same kind of work with The Weeknd most recently, but also Travis Scott. The synth god got his start in Houston, where he produced for hip-hop artists like Scarface, really pioneering the Dirty South sound. It's through the records that he mixed for Scarface that he would meet Kanye, as Kanye made some beats for Scarface that Scarface used for the album, that record being The Fix, while Mike Dean was mixing it. And they never met face to face during that process, but as Ye started out making his first mixtapes, he would reach out to Mike Dean, asking him to mix his stuff. From there, the relationship was born, and Dean would help mix Ye's debut album, The College Dropout. Following that, Mike Dean would mix damn near every single Kanye album that followed. I'm just going to list them here: Late Registration, Graduation, Dark Fantasy, Watch the Throne, Cruel Summer, Yeezus, The Life of Pablo, Ye, and Donda. But Mike Dean isn't just a guy who mixes Kanye's material. Like I said, Mike Dean plays guitar, he fucking shreds, and then also he handles the synthesizers. He's literally called the synth god because his talent on the keys. For example, when you hear on Hold My Liquor, the guitar solo, that's Mike Dean. He really helped Kanye over the years create tracks. They have been one hell of a duo, you know, cooking up tracks like Hell of a Life together. And he's a key part in helping Ye achieve the sound and concepts he's visualizing. And other than just working in the album creation process, Mike Dean's really become Kanye's go-to guy when it comes to performances. Since 2011's Watch the Throne tour, Mike Dean has been taken on tour by Kanye for damn near every single event he's had. At shows, Dean obviously acts as a DJ, playing the tracks, you know, as the track list progresses, but he also plays that live guitar, live synthesizers. He's crazy. He's awesome. For anyone who's seen him perform with Travis Scott, like, you know what I'm talking about. With Kanye, Dean obviously did the Watch the Throne tour, but he also did the Yeezus tour, St. Pablo tour, and played live for Kanye when Ye performed at that Larry Hoover benefit concert. In total, Dean's another one of these guys, where if he's not involved in the album process, it's not truly a Kanye album yet. Mike Dean and Kanye have seriously influenced a generation with their sound and collaborations, and the scary part is, they ain't done yet. Now, our last collaborator we're going to talk about, unfortunately, him and Kanye aren't on good terms right now, and he has become someone who's not controversial, but a little more hated on recently. But when you talk about Kanye's overall career, and in general, Kanye's collaborations, his chemistry with other artists, you have to talk about Kid Cudi. I know they're not friends right now. We're going to cover the beef in this section, but in my opinion, no one has better chemistry. No one has made better songs together with Kanye West. No one has done it better than Kid Cudi. Cudi got his start in the music industry in the early 2000s. He moved to New York and he became associated with the Fool's Gold record label, which is an independent label. And it is there that he would, try to find his sound and make some connections in the industry. In 2006, he would straight up walk into a record shop and literally run into Kanye. He would see, in his peripheral vision, a Jesus piece. And he would turn and holy shit, it's Kanye West. And Cudi would introduce himself, offer him some music. Kanye would politely decline it. But Cudi said, as they walked away from each other and said goodbye, he said, one day we're going to work together. Now, a year or so later, Cudi, obviously, as an aspiring artist, he hasn't made it yet. He's got to have a side job. And he's working at the Bape store in New York. And in comes Kanye West. They meet again. This time, Cudi doesn't press him to listen to his music. Instead, he just helps him, like, you know, as you're supposed to do as a retail worker. And Kanye would actually leave the store, and Cudi forgot to take off one of the tags. He literally had to run down, grab Kanye again to remove it for him. But very odd coincidences there, especially knowing how the story ends up. So Cudi, of course, is on the grind, and he puts out his first big mixtape, A Kid Named Cudi. So producer Plain Pat, who was working with Kanye at the time, he saw Day and Night and was just taken away. And he showed Kanye, he was like, you gotta hear this shit. Kanye liked that shit so much that he legit showed up to the release party Cudi had in 2008 as a surprise. From there, Ye would invite Cudi to Hawaii as he was working on 808s and Heartbreak, and history was made. Cudi would contribute greatly to the album. To put it in perspective, the first thing Cudi does when he starts working Kanye right away, first thing he does is write the hook of Heartless. Cudi would also be featured on the album, being on the second track, Welcome to Heartbreak, with an amazing performance. Cudi would also help write the tracks RoboCop and Paranoid, but from there, he would begin work on his debut studio album, Man on the Moon, and Kanye would executively produce the project and also feature on the track Make Her Say. Not really crazy about this track, but having a Kanye feature on your debut album is a big fucking deal, and it obviously got even more eyes on Cudi. From being featured on 808s, then his first album, it's like, shit, I'm gonna check it out, Kanye's on it. With the release of his debut album, Cudi would be signed to Good Music, and him and Kanye would really get into their groove in terms of being a dynamic duo in the studio. First off, on Man on the Moon 2, Kanye would be featured on the underrated track Erase Me, which is a personal favorite of mine. But as 2010 came around and Kanye's in that comeback mindset, the Good Fridays begin, Kanye drops Dark Fantasy, this is where Cudi would really shine. First off, we gotta take some time to acknowledge the awesome track Christian Dior Denim Flow. It was released as a Good Fridays release, and Cudi is on the hook, and it's just outstanding. Cudi would also feature on the tracks The Joy and, of course, the self-titled track Good Fridays. But then you get on to Dark Fantasy, where Cudi does the hook for Gorgeous, and just, man, what an iconic chorus there. He would also be featured on All the Lights, contributing his vocals there as well. But then you get into Cruel Summer, and Cudi not only has his own song in Creepers, but he's also featured on the track The Morning. Similar to how Jay-Z was to Kanye, Kanye was really Kid Cudi's big brother, truly putting his talent and innovative sound over, and putting him on some of his biggest songs when Cudi was so early on in his career. I would honestly go on to say that Kanye did more for Kid Cudi than Jay-Z did for Kanye back then, but issues would arise between Cudi and Ye in 2013. So let me just set the scene here. Cudi's already in a bad place at this time because his girl broke up with him and he was really down bad for this girl. Like, he was simping hardcore. We've all been there. But she legitimately had to get a restraining order because he sent her like 160 plus messages. We haven't exactly all been there. But that girl goes on and she dates Big Sean. And Big Sean is obviously in Kanye's camp. He shined on Cruel Summer as well. But that pisses Cudi off in general because he's like, why are you associating with him, Kanye? Which, ironic, right? We'll get there. But then Kanye puts out Yeezus, and Cudi already was off Good Music, but it was a respectful, both sides were happy with the departure, it was supportive, you know? And on Yeezus, Cudi is featured on the track Guilt Trip, and I guess his vocals were from another song that they recorded previously, not for Guilt Trip, and Kanye didn't reach out and ask whether or not he could use them or not, and that pissed Cudi off because he was like, yo, that's a half-ass feature. Why are you faking to my fans? Like, it was a full Cudi feature. That's not a real feature, which is a weird thing to say. Like in my opinion, I get respecting your artistry and having a passion for that, but like, although at the same time, man, like, you're on a Kanye album. Shut up and fucking collect the check. But also, you gotta factor in this. Kanye gave this motherfucker his career. Like, if he wants to use your vocals you recorded for him on another track, yeah, he should have reached out, but like, I don't know, mate. It just seems weird to complain about. Cudi would also, through this process, voice frustrations of how he was used on Cruel Summer. He thought he should have got more chances on the record beyond more songs, which is also kind of crazy to say when they were making a Cruel Summer movie. It didn't come out, but it's pretty common knowledge Cudi was the main guy in the movie. Like, he was the star. But regardless, time would pass, and in 2015, when Kanye's performing at the Hollywood Bowl, Cudi would join him on stage, and they squashed the beef at that point. And things were looking great, right? And then things got worse. As 2016 began, things were actually looking pretty great for the duo, as Cudi would be featured twice on Kanye's new record, The Life of Pablo, with vocals on the tracks Father Stretch My Hands Part 1 and Waves. But as Ye started associating with Drake, Cudi would become upset. So talks were, following The Life of Pablo, that Kanye was going to go and do a collab album with Drake. It wasn't really just talks or rumors. Kanye literally said it himself. Now Cudi hears this and he's all pissed off because he has beef with Drake, so he's like mad at Kanye for even entertaining the idea of doing a collab album. So Cudi puts out these tweets dissing Kanye and dissing Drake, and Kanye essentially would respond live on the St. Pablo tour at one of the tour stops, where he basically said, "Hey Kid Cudi, you can't tell me who to collaborate with. I'm my own grown man. I did you a lot of favors. Like, you're not going to tell me who to work with. Keep my name out of your mouth."
Don't ever mention your name. Don't try to say who I can do songs with. You mad because I'm doing songs with Drake? Can't nobody tell Ye who to do songs with.
And right after this happens, Kid Cudi checks into rehab, and the news hits, and Kanye's like, you know what? Oh shit. Maybe I should have checked up on him, because apparently he was going through some shit, and he reacted to this the way he did, probably because he was fucking down, you know? So next time Kanye has a show on the tour, his entire tone has changed. He dedicates Waves, the performance of that song that night, to Cudi, and says that everyone's rooting for him, and he is one of the most influential and greatest artists of all time.
Now Kid Cudi is in rehab right now, but he's got the number one song on the radio. And I want us to sing it tonight. Loud enough for him to hear it and feel it and know we love him.
And after Kanye gave Cudi his flowers, Cudi would soon leave rehab better and join Kanye on stage during the St. Pablo tour, where they performed Father Stretch together and everything. It was a great and beautiful moment. Ye would of course have his mental health scare also that year, just very shortly after that incident, ironically. But when he would get cleared, 2016, late 2016, and then finally start working on new music again in late 2017, he would be seen a lot with Kid Cudi. After both struggling with mental health issues just a year prior, Kanye and Cudi would come together and decide to do a collab album based around that very issue, calling the project Kids See Ghosts. The record would drop during Kanye's 2018 Wyoming sessions, and along with having a full-on collab tape with him, Cudi would also feature on Ye's solo album on the track Ghost Town. As Kanye worked on Yandhi later in the year, Cudi would also be pretty heavily involved in that process. Cudi would record features for The Storm, Robin Hood, City in the Sky, and Alien, but of course, Yandhi would never release. While he wasn't featured on Jesus is King the following year, Cudi and Kanye would still be on pretty great terms by early 2020, as they would both announce the release of an animated Kids See Ghosts show that was animated by Takashi Murakami, the artist who created the album's artwork. Cudi would say in interviews that around this time in early 2020, when Kanye was working on that God's Country album, that him and Ye were starting to work on Kids See Ghosts too, which, wow, that's depressing. While work would be halted and COVID would get serious, and then Kanye would have a wild ass summer that year, the two would reconnect in 2021 when Donda, the finishing touches anyway, were being put on the album. After the first listening party in Atlanta, someone would tweet out to Cudi like, "Yo, are you on Donda? Like, what's going on?" And Cudi would say, "I never got the invite. Like, I don't think it's just gonna happen, you know?" And legitimately, like, days after that tweet, we get pictures out that Cudi is at Mercedes-Benz Stadium and recording for the album. Cudi allegedly recorded for Heaven and Hell, which is, we've never heard it yet. The snippet's never leaked or anything, but I really wonder what the hell that would have sounded like, you know? But what we would hear is Cudi's contributions on the track Remote Control and Moon. His feature on Remote Control wouldn't make the main cut for the album. It would be put on the deluxe though, which I think is a shame because it's one of Cudi's better verses in my opinion in recent years. But obviously that makes the track like 7 minutes long, so I see why. His main contribution though on the main album would be obviously the feature on Moon, that beautiful track where he's harmonizing with Kanye, harmonizing with Don Toliver, just what a moment. But issues would arise again between Kanye and Cudi in 2022. Kanye was working on Donda 2, and this is when Pete Davidson started dating Kim Kardashian, and Kanye and him were kind of beefing. And Pete was definitely like antagonizing Kanye. He got Kim and Kanye's kids' initials all tattooed on his neck, and of course was texting Kanye like, yo, I'm in bed with your wife, after Kanye was like, I want to talk. He's like, where are you at right now? And he's like, in bed with your wife. Like, okay. Now, Cudi and Pete had been friends since like 2016, 2017. And when it came down to, the Donda 2 shit, a lot of people were like, per usual, just like they did with Donda, like, yo, is Cudi going to be on the album? And Kanye responded to that and basically said, just so you know, Kid Cudi is not going to be on Donda 2 because he's friends with you-know-who. He put that post out, which was, in my opinion, unnecessary, in my opinion, petty as fuck, but it's Kanye, and we expect that. Not that it's okay, but like, it wasn't out of character. This would lead Kid Cudi to comment some stupid-ass dramatic shit, which post shouldn't have been made in the first place, but like, the way Cudi responded to this was just so immature and stupid. He basically said, too bad I don't want to be on your album because you're a fucking dinosaur, and I've been the only good thing about your albums, every single one that I've been on. Like, good luck, dude. Like, just some immature shit like that. It's just not true. And, you're going to throw away a relationship with a guy you've had since, 2009, when he gave you so much, gave you your first chance and everything. Like, throw it away, just blow it up in your face like that. Like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. But Kanye would respond to this saying, I just wanted the support of my friend. I miss my best friend. Like, the knife goes deeper, which, damn, that's depressing as shit. Cudi's honestly just been on some weird shit lately, honestly. And I'm a big Kid Cudi fan. Like, I try to ignore the shit he's doing because I have a lot of respect for him, and he has a soft spot in my heart for just his music and how much it means to me. But between, yelling at fans and criticizing them on Twitter because they screenshot listening to your song on SoundCloud, or selling, like, a basic-ass t-shirt to your fans for $1,000, it's just like, I can't fuck with that shit. I'd be lying too if I said that I really was messing with his new music right now, between the soundtrack but also the snippets we've heard for this upcoming album that's coming out soon. But even though I haven't been really fucking with Cudi like that lately, I still will always have love for him, no matter how corny he may act online. His music means a shit ton to me, and when you look at this breakup with these two guys, you could tell, it's funny calling it a breakup, but that's really what it is. You could tell that it affected both of them very deeply, I mean, look at the video with Cudi when the paparazzi guy goes up and asks him, what's with the Kanye thing, man? He literally chases after him to fight him. Like, don't ask me about that shit. Cudi recently did an interview, and he brought up how he looks at Kanye for fashion inspiration, which, like, first mention in a long time that he's made a Kanye that wasn't negative. So I think progress. Kanye's always very forgiving. I never really feel like Kanye will ever hold a grudge, whether it's linking up with Drake again, like, that man will forgive anybody. I think, honestly, Kanye's more drawn to work with people who criticize him. Look at the Soulja Boy shit. But it's with Cudi recently mentioning Ye in a positive light, and Kanye in general just being a forgiving character and an artist. I think we will see these two reconnect one day. The crazy thing about Cudi and Kanye, what makes them so special, is that they really pioneered a sound that connected so much with kids like me, expressing emotion not only in their lyrics, but in their vocals. They make you feel. Their openness about discussing their mental health struggles on Kids See Ghosts is what makes the duo just mean so much to people. That's what makes Kids See Ghosts so special, and that's what honestly makes this breakup so personal to fans. Through their many collaborations over the years and even their solo work, Kanye and Cudi have truly inspired a generation. But the kids need Ye and Cudi. They need the reunion. The kids need Kids See Ghosts.